Gaming has evolved immensely for the past 20 years. Things that were thought impossible became a reality. Technology became art, and from it, masterpieces blossomed. Nowadays, the industry spread its creativity beyond what we could ever predict in the past. The supply is near infinite, and no matter how exotic and eccentric our taste may be, there will be a game that will match our needs. But sometimes, from the desire of a few, surges the craving of thousands, and from a singular game, an entirely new genre was born. Small as any other niche, this one in particular managed to bring many people together and provide them with a never-seen experience, something magical. But what do these games have that make them so special? What do they offer to make these communities lose themselves inside their worlds for thousands of hours? There is indeed something unique about them, a feeling so strong that gets us hooked for astonishing amounts of time, a feeling that we seemingly never had the chance to have until now. And some of you might be wondering, what are these games even? These are dinosaur survival games, a small branch of the traditional survival genre where every player roams the lands of strange worlds not as humans, but as majestic and long extinct creatures. For most people, the closest game to this that they might have experienced is Ark Survival Evolved. And that may seem odd for some. If these titles don't have any humans to speak of, then there's also no building system, no crafting. There's nothing that this genre's community is used to. So what's their purpose? Being so limited would eventually result in boredom, right? Who would play a game where there's apparently nothing to do? The answer is, yeah, it can be pretty boring. There's a reason why this subgenre is niche to begin with. But if that's the case, then why do I have over 2,000 hours in just one of them? And not just me. A significant portion of our community have at least triple-digit numbers on their accounts, so they are clearly doing something right. The question is, what? Despite their mechanical differences, every single one of them possess the same core game loop. You pick a server, choose your dinosaur, customize it, spawn as a juvenile, stay alive until adulthood, and that's it. That's the game. There are some additional mechanics inside the loop itself, such as nesting or questing, but once you reach your maximum size, your character progress ends there. Now, depending on the species you choose or the game you're playing, the main gameplay experience might differ a bit, but there's one single key component that distinguishes them from traditional survival titles. In games like Ark or Rust, players constantly compete with each other for territory, resources, or simple competition. That is the essence of the genre. It is the scarcity of those resources that promote conflict, and it's within that conflict and the social interactions due to them that most of the game's enjoyment lies. But there, players compete for a third-party element that is static, being either food, water, ammunition, equipment, medicine, building materials, or tameable creatures. In games like The Isle, Path of Titans, and Beast of Bermuda, however, there's a small but very impactful difference. In those games, players aren't equal, not only because they are different animal species, but also because they require different resources. But if their needs don't overlap, then there shouldn't be any form of conflict, right? Well, in theory, yes, but here's the ingenuity behind them. While herbivorous dinosaurs tend to have an easier time surviving since their food source is stationary and plentiful across the map, carnivores obviously require meat, and even though they are able to stay alive hunting small AI prey items, they are heavily incentivized into hunting other dinosaur players, which not only provides a much more considerable amount of food, in some games they even reward carnivores with specific nutrients that their AI counterparts don't have. This in turn creates an artificial ecosystem that promotes player interaction and conflict in an immersive and organic way. It might have not been intentional, but this subtle change fixed two massive problems that games like Rust were never able to solve: punishing progression and toxicity management. In many titles of the survival genre, the vast majority of your own individual progress is attached to external components: the structures you build, the equipment you craft, the food that you harvest. All of that is part of the player's progression, but with that comes a problem. Being an external element, once the player logs off or simply leaves the area, those structures and equipment remain there and vulnerable to being stolen or destroyed. And due to the sandbox nature of these survival games, players are influenced into doing exactly that. By destroying those structures and stealing their resources, that is essentially removing the player's progress, most of the time outside of their control or even without them knowing. Now, of course, the most hardcore members of the community play Rust and Conan for that exact same reason. They enjoy these heavily punishing environments. The problem is that the vast majority of people don't, especially when they can't do anything about it because they are working or asleep. In dinosaur survival games, the entire player's progress is attached to their own character. It is always present regardless of their location, it disappears whenever they log off, it can't be stolen or destroyed without them knowing. You can only lose your progress if you are killed, and that heavily increases the level of player agency in the game, since this way players can never regress in situations they are unable to take action, giving them the level of control that most survival games can't. Toxicity is also less frequent in comparison. Even though in traditional survival titles players compete for resources among other things, there's a disproportionately large amount of cases where people are robbed, harassed, killed, or even tortured for literally no reason, as if those actions on their own weren't bad enough. The idea of them occurring for no particular reason aggravates the sense of frustration and anger of the victims. This, in conjunction of the progress issue previously mentioned, results in an extremely hostile environment where nobody is trustworthy, and it's more beneficial to have the initiative in attacking others rather than having diplomatic or more passive social interactions between players. That environment breeds toxicity en masse. This is why survival games are notorious for being even more toxic than some competitive games like League or Valorant. Here you can lose hours, days, weeks of progress in a second, be endlessly bullied by stronger groups of players, and in some cases they can even torture you to the point of preventing you from playing the game at all. In the Isle or Path, when you are killed, there's a pretty decent chance that the ones who did so out of necessity. Being killed by a carnivore automatically implies that they needed food, or if a herbivore attacks you and you see a nest, you can deduce that they were protecting their nesting ground. In most cases, the immersive nature of these games organically provide the motive and intentions of each member of the confrontation when someone is being hunted, unconsciously alleviating the frustration that comes with the loss of your dinosaur. Obviously, it doesn't remove it completely. but it does help a lot when it comes to preventing these games from becoming overly toxic. But despite these positive changes to the genre, this still doesn't explain their success and clear rise in popularity as of late. It is an improvement, but they also lack many features present in other titles, and they suffer from considerably large amounts of downtime due to that. But even then, the community plays them non-stop. But why? The answer is actually pretty simple. Because we love these creatures. We grew up watching them in movies, the fantasy of living in exotic lands full of beautiful animals that we will never be able to see for real. The immersiveness of seeing other people coexist or compete, feeling the role of the animals they are portraying. It gives us the opportunity to experience the same things we wanted to whenever we saw those movies for the first time so long ago. That is why we love these games so much. They may have issues, they may be unfinished and polished, but they never took away what these titles provide the best: the immersive adventure of being a dinosaur. And as this subgenre progresses, their games improve and their popularity rises, this feeling will only get better. A huge thank you to my Patreon supporters for supporting the channel and the content I create. If you wanna join the ranks, the link will be in the description. Don't forget to leave your thoughts and opinions down below. Join our Discord server for memes and pillar nut stuff, and I hope to see you all next week.